Shalom, shalom, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pulse of Israel here in our eternal and ancestral homeland, the land of Israel, in our eternal, beautiful, biblical, and indivisible capital, Jerusalem, since King David's time. So, again, in between shifts, go back up tonight in my IDF reserve duty. And I just wanted to deal with a headline item here in Israel that touches upon much deeper issues. And that is about Israeli Knesset member Tali Gotleib of the Likud party, who sharing information from a website that is not a mainstream media website at all. Most people never even heard of the website, but which claimed that the Mossad leader, I think it was the Mossad or one of the Secret Service leaders, met with the head of Hamas. And basically this turned into headline items because you had the head of the Mossad, you had the head of the Shabak, again, the two different intelligence agencies, calling it out as a total fabrication. You have all the news medias calling it out as total fabrication. You have the Prime Minister's office calling it out as fabrication, making headlines. Now, again, that's what that news report said. That's what this Israeli parliament member shared, which created the headlines. But it's not the first time that she shared information as startling and shocking like this. Because after the October 7th massacre, she posted information that she knew 100% that, again, the head of the intelligence agency met with Shikma Bressler. Who is Shikma Bressler? She is one of the heads of the anti-judicial reform protest movement, the anti-Bibi Netanyahu movement, the anti-Netanyahu government movement, together with former Prime Minister Ehud Barak. And again, there's information out there that her husband works or is second in command at one of the intelligence agencies. Don't know if that's fact or not, but definitely startled everyone to hear that the head of the intelligence agency met personally with her before October 7th. All right, what's the big deal about all this? The big deal is as follows. And again, I'm going to tell over to you an interview I heard this morning of Israeli parliament member Tali Gotleib talking. So this is very important information. I've been touching upon this information, but here you're going to hear it through me of the information directly from her. And she has said the following. Okay? Now, first of all, before I say what she said, understand, and I've been telling you this from the beginning, I have full confidence in our soldiers on the ground and in the officers on the ground fighting this war, risking their lives. They know what this war is about. They know how to win this war. Every soldier on the ground, mostly every soldier, or the majority voices of the soldiers on the ground are saying, we're in Gaza to stay. That's the only way to provide safety to the Israeli people. Besides the fact of having a clear victory over Hamas, they have a price to pay. They kill us. They lose the land they used to kill us for over 20 years. No question. So all the soldiers on the ground, most of the soldiers on the ground, all understand this. That's the only way to protect Israel. We have to remain in Gaza. And not just soldiers, but civilians. With a civilian presence, you can have a military presence. Without a civilian presence, military presence ends up pulling out. That's just history, modern history and not so modern history. All right? So the soldiers on the ground know that. They want to win. They want to ensure that everyone down south and up north can return to their homes. Okay? Full confidence in the soldiers on the ground. No confidence in the people on top. The heads of the army, the heads of the intelligence, no confidence whatsoever. It was their misguided leadership. And again, they're the ones that give all the information to the prime minister, to the security cabinet, to the government. They're the ones always saying, this is the situation on the ground, this is our advice, this is what you do. So the politicians and the prime minister always make their decisions based on the information they're hearing from the experts. And they hear the experts from the heads of the army, the heads of the intelligence services, their own military attaches, who also get their information from the heads of the armies and the intelligence services. So the politicians and the prime minister make their decisions based on the information they're getting. even though in Israel it's been known, and I've told you this, and this was information that came out already October 8th or October 9th, the intelligence services had the information about this planned Hamas attack. And still, they were telling the government and the prime minister, everything's fine, Hamas is not interested in conflict, let's allow more Gazans into Israel to work with work permits, right? That was the advice of the heads of the army and intelligence services. And based on that information, government and government committees and the prime minister made their decisions about what to do. Well, no trust in them. So Tali Gotleib is saying, folks, put the pieces together. The head of intelligence agency met with this Shikma Bresler before October 7th. And the other piece of information you put together of the puzzle, plenty of top heads of the intelligence agencies and the armies were part of the anti-judicial reform, anti-Bibi Netanyahu, anti-government protest movement. You had top officials, whether former or current, whether privately or publicly, who were involved in the protest movement to bring down the government. So much so, you had former commanders and chief of staffs and heads of intelligence agencies calling upon Israeli soldiers to refuse orders and not to serve if called up. How bad can that be? That's horrendous. And another one of the things they were saying, and they stated publicly, again, the heads of the anti-judicial reform, anti-government movement, was Netanyahu will not have an army come September. That is documented. They specifically said, come September, Netanyahu won't have an army. The massacre happened on October 7th. Guess what? There was no army. For hours, on the one hand, you could say, yes, the army was totally devastated on the border. We had hundreds of soldiers killed on the border in all of the bases, the IDF bases on the border. But for hours and hours and hours, there was no army to show up. There were hardly any planes, hardly any helicopters. So there literally was no army. And that's exactly what the protest movement leaders were saying for months. Come September, Netanyahu won't have an army. And again, heads of the Israeli Air Force, they didn't have enough pilots to get up in the air, even on October 7th or even October 8th, because so many of the pilots did not show up for the necessary training that they're supposed to keep up, whether once a week or once a month, whatever, because they took part in the anti-government, anti-judicial reform movement, supported not showing up for military service, and them who have to go through continuous training stopped showing up for training. And again, documented. After October 7th, heads of the Air Force said, we didn't have everyone able to go up in the air. They had to get caught up with the training in order to then be able to be given a cockpit. So yes, October 7th, Netanyahu did not have an army. So Tali Gotleib was saying in this article today, like, there is what to think that if the head of the intelligence agency was meeting with Shikma Bresler, one of the heads of the protest movement, together with Ehud Barak, who was very well connected in the whole military defense establishment, and the heads, former heads and current heads. So it raises questions. We don't know what happened, but it raises questions. And Tali Gotleib was saying, and this I've said also, that the heads of the army and all the intelligence agencies, they should have resigned, and if not resigned, then been fired on October 8th. The massacre, the worst massacre to ever happen on Israeli soil. And they had all the information. They met together on the morning of October 7th. Again, this was reported upon on October 8th in Israeli media. They met together at 4:30 in the morning on October 7th with the warning that an attack was going to happen. And they said, let's go to sleep and meet again at 8 o'clock. And the attack happened at 6:30. They had the information. They did not escalate that information to the government, to the prime minister. So there are enough pieces out there to, one, first of all, know how they failed horrendously. Horrendous failure. The deaths are all under their military intelligence leadership when they had the information. And they weren't there to protect Israeli citizens. So just for that, they should have resigned or been fired. And here, what Israeli Knesset member Tali Gotleib is saying, there is what to say that potentially some of the heads of these services were somehow working hand in hand with the anti-Netanyahu, anti-government, anti-judicial reform protest movement, whose sole goal is to bring down the government. Now, what that has to do with what happened on October 7th, I don't know. But there are questions that need to be asked. And all of these heads of the army and intelligence services should have been fired. Right? And the funny thing is, like, you follow the establishment media, they're now pushing the narrative that Israel must go to elections. So first of all, and I've spoken about this before, if Israel goes to elections, that means forget about Israelis going back home to their north and south, because the war basically stops. Forget about getting the hostages out. So they're stuck there for another who knows how long. So anyone calling for new elections, it's basically not about helping Israel win or helping free the hostages. It's just because of their hatred for the proud right-wing government officials and Netanyahu's government that we have. That's it. It's a total hatred. And we're seeing that protest movement is coming back to the streets, where they're calling for new elections. They're basically saying, we've been protesting since 2017. Right now they're protesting to free the hostages. It's not about the hostages. It's about bringing down the government in the name of the hostages. That's just their new issue. Just as the judicial reform was their new issue to try to bring down the government. It's never been about the issues. It's about bringing down the government. So they're back in the streets now in Israel. They're a tiny, tiny minority, but they're vocal and they're powerful. And here you see they have connections. They have connections to the heads of the army and the intelligence services. Again, during the year of protests, when this protest movement was calling publicly for IDF soldiers and pilots to refuse orders and not serve, you did not see the heads of the intelligence service or heads of the army putting down that insurrection. It's an insurrection. They did not call out the insurrection. They called upon responsibility of the government to not do things that would make them do their insurrection. That's not leadership. They literally were silent. And here they're going crazy because Tali Gotleib put out this information. You know what? If it's crazy, don't say anything. Why are you going out and making press releases and making huge news about it? Laugh at it. All right. She's saying this information makes no sense whatsoever. They are making a bigger deal of this than they did of the months of senior former IDF leaders and intelligence leaders who called literally for insurrection and for soldiers to refuse orders and not serve, even if called upon. Then they were silent. They didn't call out, they didn't say, you're gone. Anyone who should, on the first day, a soldier who says that should be thrown out of the army. Basically, right? They can't serve anymore. And again, if you're in a democratic system, you take that stance, you pay the price for that stance. And again, I have no problem with someone believing in that stance. If he believes, I can't serve in the army anymore, then okay, but pay the price. Then sit in jail. You don't get off scot-free for doing something that's totally wrong. So yes, this is the situation that we're dealing with. And these same leaders of the army and the intelligence services, they're the ones who are not letting Israel win this war. They're the ones saying that we have to end this war, or all we need is a security zone in the Gaza Strip, and we can't stay there. They are not allowing us to win. They're supposed to be the leaders to bring us to victory, and they're not. It's the people who understand how we have victory. It's the soldiers on the ground who understand how we have victory. It's the Jewish people who understand in order for Israelis to move back south to their homes and up north to their homes, we have to have a clear victory where we are back in that territory. So down south, it means we are living with a military presence in the Gaza Strip. And again, most of those Gazan Arabs are allowed to leave, voluntary immigration, because what's there for them to stay at? They don't have homes. Their communities are destroyed. And the same thing up north. It's about time we have that security zone back up north in the southern Lebanon, just as we had before Ehud Barak, the biggest failure of leadership, military and prime ministership, shortest time as prime minister, pulled out the IDF from southern Lebanon, which allowed Hezbollah to take over and destroy Lebanon and leave unfortunately endangered the Christians in Lebanon, the Christian Arabs in Lebanon. We were helping the Christian Arabs protect them. But again, because of international pressure, once again, you saw how our leadership, and Ehud Barak was military leadership, and all the military leaders at the time said, oh yes, we must pull out of southern Lebanon. I served in southern Lebanon. We were able to provide security for the Christian Arabs in Lebanon and for all Israelis by being in southern Lebanon. We have to go back to southern Lebanon. That's it, to protect the Christian Arabs in Lebanon and protect Israelis. And in Gaza, we have to be in Gaza. That's the only, and both militarily and civilian. But this is the one solution that the heads of the army and the intelligence are not telling the government or the prime minister. So where's the optimism? The optimism is little by little, more and more Israelis are seeing reality, are waking up to reality, and we're going to be the ones, together with our faith in the one above, and in our guns, and having our common sense that we're going to bring victory for the Jewish people against our evil, evil enemies. All right? We will win, despite the failures of the military and intelligence leadership and the weakness of our political leadership that are not able to stand up to the failure leadership of the military intelligence and also to the pressure of the world. It's going to come from the bottom. It's going to come from the people. We're going to demand it. We're going to demand true victory. So no matter what pressure the Biden administration puts on us, right? And again, what just came out was just leaked that Bibi, in a private conversation with families of the captives in Gaza, he told them Qatar is to blame and the U.S. is to blame for not putting pressure on Qatar. And he told them straight out, the U.S. just renewed its military contract with Qatar because America has its largest military base in the Middle East in Qatar. All Biden had to do, and again, Caroline Glick said this weeks ago, months ago, all Biden had to do was call Qatar and say, listen, we're about to renew a contract of our military base. You guys funded Hamas. You're basically Hamas. You're the ones holding the captives in Gaza. Well, if you want us to have our U.S. military base that helps Qatar in so many ways, well, free those captives yesterday. And Biden could have done that on day one. Here we're over 110 days past. And Biden not only did not make that phone call, he renewed the contract without even making any condition on Qatar releasing the captives in Gaza. And again, the Biden administration is looking at Qatar as a neutral mediator. But they're not neutral. They fund Hamas. They are Hamas. Qatar is holding our captives in Gaza. How can the Biden administration look at them as a neutral negotiator? And here we see Netanyahu in his weakness, and again, it's real politics, so I don't know, I understand he's under pressure. But only in a private conversation does he say, yeah, Qatar is part of the problem, and the Biden administration is not doing what it should do in terms of treating Qatar as part of the problem. Instead, they treat it as part of the solution. So Netanyahu knows this, and he said it privately. He hasn't said it publicly. Now it's public, so it's going to be interesting where things go from here, because I'm sure the White House is furious at Netanyahu for saying this even privately. So it'll be interesting where things go from here, because now it can't be ignored. Qatar is the problem. It's not just Hamas. Hamas is Qatar. Qatar is Hamas. It's now been exposed. It's now been exposed that Netanyahu has said this publicly, has publicly said the Biden administration is responsible for our captives still being in Gaza by treating Qatar as a neutral partner, as not as part of the problem, because it is Hamas. So where are things going to go from here? So Netanyahu was not able to say this publicly because of geopolitics and weakness, but now it's out there in the public. But we, the Jewish people, we're standing up for our rights. We know giving aid to Gaza is immoral, because we can't, when you don't give aid to your enemy, you destroy your enemy. The Allies did not give aid to Germany. They gave aid to Germans after they destroyed the Nazis, and there was a clear victory of the Allies. So the Western world didn't give humanitarian aid to Germans while it was in the middle of World War II, but we have to give humanitarian aid to Gaza? No, let us have a victory in Gaza. Let us destroy the terror infrastructure in Gaza. Allow anyone who wants to leave. And when Israel is fully in control and there's peaceful presence in Gaza, we'll obviously give them the aid. But during war, we have to beat the enemy. Hamas is taking that aid and staying alive another day to kill us. And that's not how you achieve victory. So the Jewish people are waking up because now we're protesting that. Like, stop giving the trucks. It's because of the world, that world pressure that we're giving them aid. Hundreds and hundreds of trucks of aid every day going to Gaza. And it's going to Hamas, which means Hamas is living to kill us another day, thanks to Biden and world pressure, Western world pressure. And again, it's the people at the bottom who understand we're going to have victory when we're in Gaza 100% of the time, forever, with a civilian presence there. The people on the ground want that because we know that's the only way people down south and up north are going to be able to move back to their homes, when that is the victory against our enemies. So the people on the ground are waking up. And even though we're going to have so much pressure, and even though our leaders are still not there, it's because of our faith in the one above and the renewal of the Jewish people's connection with our identity and with our own good old common sense that we're not going to give in to this insane immorality of world pressure on Israel anymore. And we're not going to let our military and intelligence leaders get away with either their negligence, dereliction of duty, or maybe even much worse, in not being there and allowing the October 7th massacre to happen. Whether allowing because they had the information and ignored it, or worse. Okay? But again, we don't have any more facts beyond that. So this is the latest of what's going on in Israel. And again, I am telling you all this and sharing with you the scary factual information about our military and intelligence leaders in order to inspire you, because we are going to overcome this all. And this isn't something new. Anyone who follows me knows that I have been saying for years that Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin in 1993, when he was assassinated, well, the intelligence services were involved in that assassination. How do I know? Because the head guy who managed Yigal Amir, who shot the gun at Yitzhak Rabin, well, he was being handled by an intelligence agency officer whose nickname was Champagne, whose real name was Avishai Raviv. Okay? So we all know, it's public information. Avishai Raviv was a plant of the intelligence services who managed the person who had the gun who shot Yitzhak Rabin in the back. Now, whether Yigal Amir is the one who killed Yitzhak Rabin, and again, I've done a video on this already in the past, I do not think he killed him. I think he had a gun, and he shot the gun. But the medical, again, this is a totally different video, totally different information, where I go into the question marks about the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin. But regardless, whether Yigal Amir killed him or not, he was managed by a Shabak agent named Avishai Raviv, nicknamed Champagne. Public record. Why was the potential assassin or the alleged assassin of Yitzhak Rabin handled by an intelligence officer? Right? So I haven't had trust in the heads of the intelligence agencies. This is 1993. Since the early 1990s, all right, I've been on top of questioning and not trusting. There are plenty of amazing, loyal intelligence officers on the ground in the intelligence services, in the IDF, but there are plenty of rotten apples on the top who do bad things and abuse their power and do bad things to the Jewish people and the Jewish state of Israel while being in power. So hence, I am okay in exposing this because I talk to you about America also. There's a deep state in America. Well, here there's a deep state in Israel. And it's not about helping Israel and the Jewish people. It's about putting down the Jewish people and the Jewish state of Israel. For whatever issues, whatever reasons, different video. Okay? So I'm not surprised and I'm not disappointed to hear that, one, heads of intelligence potentially worked together with the heads of the anti-judicial reform movement and sat on information regarding October 7th and didn't escalate it to the government or to Prime Minister Netanyahu. Doesn't surprise me, doesn't disappoint me. That's reality. I understand reality. I understand how even the CIA in America does bad things sometimes to the American people, whether in America or around the world, whatever. Intelligence agencies, there are some bad apples at the top who did bad things connected to deep state parties and other interests, not for the interest of the people who they're supposed to protect. But I'm sharing this with you to be inspired, because we are on the up and up. The Jewish people in the land of Israel, we are waking up, and we're going to have true victory. It's us and the one above. Remember that, folks. Us and the one above. And part of us is standing up for ourselves. And it's the soldiers on the ground and the officers on the ground. We're going to bring the victory despite the weakness of the leadership, the top leadership of the intelligence services and the IDF. So everyone, be positive, be invigorated, be inspired. We are in the time period where the lies that we have just lived with and accepted as fact are being peeled off like an onion. One lie after another lie. One layer of lies like another layer of lies that we've just accepted as fact and thought things are good. All of a sudden realize, oh my God, this is bad. This is a lie. This I accepted. This. And little by little, the truth's coming out. Learning who the true good people are, who are working against such really bad actors inside the system. And we're going to win. It's up to us, it's up to the people. So if you're Israeli, if you're Jewish, be inspired that the Jewish people are taking ownership of our identity and of our common sense, and we're going to bring victory. And if you're not Israeli, you're not Jewish, well, little by little, these things are happening in your countries as well. Plug into it. We're in redemptive times. Things look scary. Things look bad everywhere. It's all the onion peeling process. It's the lies being shed one by one. And we're getting to the truth. We're exposing the truth. And good times are coming. So Am Yisrael Chai, folks. Pray, and stand for the Jewish state of Israel. Definitely don't believe the horrible lies or the conspiracy theories about Israel. Not at all. We are the epicenter of the good for humanity. Support us here, and it's going to come to all of you everywhere. So pray. Signing off for another episode of the Pulse of Israel, everyone. If you like these videos, and if these make you think, all right, please, and you think other people should be thinking and using their common sense and putting things together, even if they bother you, even if they surprise you, but you believe this is important information, well, sign up to Pulse of Israel. Go to pulseofisrael.com and sign up to receive our daily video updates. And if you support these messages and think more people should hear them, just click on the donate button every once in a while on pulseofisrael.com. We are about waking us up one person at a time so that we all together bring in a better future. Better future for the Jewish people in the land of Israel means a better future for the whole freedom-loving world, and overcoming all of the evils that are out there, that are at play every single second. Just we ignore them because we're told to ignore them. No more ignoring. Let's look at them in the eye, understand what they're about, understand what they're doing, and then focus on being part of the good and the process of exposing the good and overcoming it. Am Yisrael Chai. Thanks again for watching. Shalom, everyone. Signing off from our eternal and ancestral homeland, the land of Israel, in our beautiful, biblical, eternal, indigenous, and indivisible capital, Jerusalem, since King David's time.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.